Hi, it's James Taylor here. I want to talk to you about a book that I've been reading recently called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon, and I want to talk to you about the 10 principles in this book which talk about how to unlock your creativity. They have this expression, we stand on the shoulders of giants. If you're a creative individual, you're probably part of a lineage of other creatives that have come before you, that have inspired you, who in turn have had other creatives that have inspired them. And hopefully you're going to go on to inspire other creatives as time goes on as well. So what this book is really fantastic at is talking about some of the key principles that probably undercut a lot of these giants in creativity, regardless of what the art form is. There's a couple of reasons I like this book. First of all, there's a simplicity and a truth in the way that it's written. Secondly, if you're a fan of just really quick reads, this book will probably take you about an hour to read. It's a very quick read, but that's not to say that the lessons in this book are throwaway lessons. They're not. It's that, it's that kind of Zen thing where sometimes the simpler things are actually sometimes the most complex and the most detailed you can really dive into. So let me talk to you about the principles within this book. And if you haven't checked out Austin's tweets, he's very big on Twitter. It's definitely worth checking that out as well. But let me talk to you about some of those 10 key principles that are in this book about how to unlock your creativity. So the first one, and it's the reason why this book is called Steal Like an Artist, the very first principle is that we all steal. We, as artists, that's kind of how we learn. We take someone's idea, we kind of steal it, and because we're human beings, we never make a perfect carbon copy of something. It's a little bit like when you have parents and they have a child. The child is not a duplicate of one parent or the other. It's a little bit of a mix. As my Italian friend would say, it's an insalata mista. It's a little bit of a mix of these two things. So one of the things that Austin talks about is this idea that nothing is really original in this world, but what you do have is where different ideas come together, and from that stems something which is an unusual mix, or is a new or novel mix. The other thing that it talks about a lot is this idea of the creative lineage. So if you're a guitarist, for example, you can probably trace your lineage back to the artist that inspired you. Who was the artist? Was it Jimi Hendrix? Well, who inspired Jimi Hendrix? It was T-Bone Walker. And you can kind of go back. Likewise, if you're a writer, if you're a big fan of Hemingway, well, who did Hemingway read? And you can trace this back. And this has value in it as well, because so much of the work that we do as creative individuals, we can kind of feel alone and on our own. But you have this lineage that's there that you can take some solace from. You're part of a longer line of creatives who are trying to do a similar thing, but maybe look to attack the problem in slightly different ways. The other point it talks about in the very first principle of Steal Like an Artist is to ensure that you're always recording your ideas. That's why I always recommend, it doesn't matter if you're a writer or not, to be doing morning journals, but to always be traveling around with some kind of device, something where you can record your ideas. It can be old school pen and paper in a journal. It can be things like Evernote are great for just quickly recording those ideas. Don't let those ideas kind of just come into your head and then just go away. Record them in some way, and you can always come back to them as well. So that's the first principle, the idea to steal like an artist, and this idea that nothing is really original and we have to do a certain amount of imitation, although he talks about it really in a fantastic way about how do you get that level right where you're not copying to a certain extent, but you're able to take some of the best of what has come before you. The other second point is don't wait until you know who you are to do the creative work. This is something I can see happens a lot where artists, they say, I'm not going to put anything out into the world until I really know what it is that, the kind of thing that I want to do, what my thing is. Well, in most cases, I would say that's not a good idea, and I'll give you an example of this. a band like Fleetwood Mac, great band, they went through many permutations of their music. They started as a blues band, then it became like a more rock thing, then it became more of a pop thing. So they actually had multiple sounds, they had multiple styles that they kind of went through in the course of their career. There's a great expression when I used to work in Silicon Valley, which is fake it till you make it. And that's a good alternative to this idea that I have to have everything down, I have to have my style completely, it has to be this beautifully fully formed package before I'm going to put it out into the world. I would say that's not probably the best way to approach it, and Austin speaks about this very clearly in the book as well. The third point is to write what you want to read. So when you're doing your creative work, it doesn't matter actually whether you're a writer or a musician or an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you want to make the kind of products that you would want to buy. You as a musician, you want to make the records that you would want to listen to. It's so easy to kind of get caught up in being told by the market, this is what you need to create. There's a point and there's a usefulness of asking out into the market what you feel would be right, but it's only after you've made some key decisions of the kind of thing you want to do. The market and surveys and focus groups and all those things are fantastic once you've kind of narrowed it down. So you're looking at little small degrees of things, but the market is not the best place to go and ask about what kind of art you should be creating. The fourth point is to use your hand. And Austin talks about this, and I've seen this in a lot of other creatives, where they'll almost have like a digital setup in their study or their home office, and then they'll have the analog setup. Now, if I go into music studios, I'll see all the Pro Tools set up there, but then often I'll see a sofa and I'll see all the guitars and the kind of analog stuff as well. So as a writer, what Austin talks about is this idea that the computers are fantastic. It's amazing, with tablet devices and different things, different technology. They're fantastic, but they're great as editing tools most of the time. If you want to get ideas out of your mind and onto something, into some physical form, then nothing really beats pen and paper. There's a tactile thing that happens when you use your hands. So much of the time we're living up here in our heads as creative individuals, but you want to have that tactile thing of actually getting it down on the page. Or if you're an entrepreneur, the whiteboard is a typical example as well. And then once you've kind of got those ideas and you've kind of brought them out and you've played around with them, then the editing is great to be doing on computers. So it's something, if you're not already experimenting with it, it might be worth trying to have old school pen and paper, whiteboards, and then combine that with the digital form of it as well for the editing process. The fifth point he talks about is the importance of having hobbies and side projects. This goes to a Google idea, the 20% time that a lot of Google employees have. Some of Google's best inventions have come from that time where the engineers and the people who work at Google, they're kind of side projects, they're side gigs. And I would say that if you're a creative professional or you're a creative individual, always have those side projects or side hobbies that don't relate directly with what you're doing, because they will feed off of each other. They will help each other in different ways. An example that I always think about here is the guy who wrote the music for the film Ben-Hur, which you've never seen. It's a great movie from the 50s or the 60s. And he was a classical composer, and so half of his year he would spend writing these great big heavy symphonic classical pieces, very complex pieces, and the other half he would be spending writing music for TV and film. And when he was asked about how he can do these two different things, the heavy duty classical and then also the kind of the more commercial film work that he did, he said, well, both of them feed off of each other. I wouldn't be as good a classical writer if I didn't do the film stuff. I wouldn't be as good a film writer if I didn't do the classical stuff. They feed off of each other as well. So always have that 20% time for yourself. It doesn't have to be related directly to the job, the creative job that you're doing. And you will find it will both allow you to pace yourself better, and because we're in this for the long haul, but actually it can actually be a great source of creative ideas that can feed into your main thing, your main gig. sixth point is something I tell people all the time, you know, do good work and share it with people. Austin talks about it here in the book. I would express it in a slightly different way. I would say as creative individuals we have two roles. We have the role of creating and the role of communicating. And often if I talk with creatives who are having difficult times in one way or the other, it's maybe because they've got that balance off slightly. Either that they are spending so much time they're creating and they're focused purely on the creation part, you know, for long extended periods of time, many years, and aren't communicating, getting out to the world and really understanding how to communicate what they're doing. Is not a good thing. But at the other side, I've also seen artists who have spent all their time doing the hustle part, doing the calls, doing the emails, but have neglected the creative reason that they're in this for the first place. So you do have to get that balance right. You know, he talks about doing good work and sharing it with people. I would say creating and communicating. It's going to be different for everyone, but if you're feeling slightly off about that, kind of return back to that blend for yourself. Are you getting that right mixture of those two different things? The seventh point is this idea that geography is no longer an issue. The power that we have with technology now, I can be coming up with an idea in London, I can be talking about it with a client in Boston, we can be having a designer in Philippines creating the initial mock-up for the idea, and then I can be having website designers in Romania building it as an example. So geography the internet has changed the role of geography. It's not to say that it still isn't important, it is, but the geography has changed. And something I would really recommend to you, if you're in a place where that you can now work from anywhere in the world, it's still worth attending those events, and it might be conferences in your industry where you have meetups with other people. First of all, it can get kind of lonely doing creative work and not showing what's kind of going on, but some of the biggest successes I've had have come about from those little conversations I've had at conferences and music events and art events and just kind of meetups and different things like that. So while the role of geography is changing because of the internet, it still has an importance, but not the same type of importance as it maybe once had in the past, where you had to be if you were in music, you had to be in New York, you had to be in LA, you had to be in London. It's changing. The eighth point is this that he just says, you know, be nice, and it makes me think of that Kevin Spacey line where he was talking about what it's like to have the success that Kevin Spacey had as an actor and as a director, an artistic director, and he said, you know, you have to remember that if you're fortunate enough to kind of go up, send the elevator back down. You should always be nice to the people that you're working with, because, well, first of all, it's a good side of being a good human being on this planet, but also you will have many ups and downs in your career. And if you're a nice person, those times when the down periods are in your career will be easier, and you will find that people will be much more supportive of you in those times. People generally aren't as supportive of people who are not nice, because they remember those things as well. Sounds obvious, but it's often worth repeating. The ninth one is, which I love, is be boring. Get work done. The media paints the creative industries as it's all about red carpets and award ceremonies. That's the smallest part of it. The majority of the time is doing the work. If you're a musician, it's in that time in the studio, head down, or on the road, you know, doing shows. If you're a writer, it's that time on the seat, at the desk, writing, working on that piece of work. If you're an artist, it's that time at the canvas. That's the work. And in order to do that work and to do it consistently well, you have to be a little bit boring. There has to be times where you say, actually, no, I'm not going to go out and do all that kind of cool, exciting stuff, because I need to focus here on doing the work. A key point of that is actually having a calendar, which it is something that I see creatives, they'll sometimes not really think so much about, but you want to have a level of consistency in your output. One of the the most common things you'll see in successful creatives is they have a consistency of continually putting out work. I'm not saying all the work is good work, but they're consistently putting out work and constantly striving, constantly hungry for that. So having a calendar is a great way of ensuring a level of consistency. If you're a writer, if you're a blogger, it's an editorial calendar. If you're an entrepreneur, it's those dates when you know they're going to ship the product or do the marketing videos or whatever the thing is for you. So you have to be a little bit boring in order to become successful as a creative professional, I would say. And then the final point, which kind of relates to that last one, is creativity is subtraction. There are so many ways that we can veer off our path that we're trying to forge as a creative individual. As you become more successful as a creative individual, what will happen is you will have more offers made to you. There will be more opportunities to you, which on one side is fantastic, it's great. You know, you would have killed for those opportunities probably when you were struggling. But there's a danger there as well. So you always have to remind is that creativity is subtraction. You're always wanting to cut back all the stuff that's not really essential to what you're doing as a creative individual and focus on that essentialism. There's a great book called Essentialism as well. You can read just about this idea of subtraction, about focusing on the thing that moves the needle. For what it is for you, if you're a writer, it's probably those 1,000 words or those 2,000 words that you have to write each day. If you're a songwriter, it's ensuring that every day you're writing a new song, as an example. Everything else is gravy, everything else is extra. You have to continually coming back to doing the work and investing in yourself and investing in your art. So that's a kind of an overview of the 10 points in Austin Kleon's book. It's a great book. I highly recommend that you pick up a copy. It's a really fast read, so if you're not a big reader, don't worry about it. It's a great book to read. So the writer is Austin Kleon, and the book is Steal Like an Artist. I highly recommend it. My name's James Taylor. Hi, it's James here. Did you enjoy that episode? If so, there's two things that we can do to continue the journey together. Firstly, I would love if you to subscribe, give us 5 stars and leave a comment. Secondly, if you go to jamestaylor.me and enter your name and email address, I'm going to send you some free goodies all around creativity and innovation. Look forward to continuing the journey together.